So now we want to look a little bit at orthography and colonialism. Okay, so we're looking at the ancient Tagalog script Baybayin, the Kudlit, the use of the Roman alphabet and Spanish orthography, Lactau suggestions, Rizal suggestions, the standardization of the Tagalog orthography, and changing the Filipino orthography. So for this lecture, so this is everything that we need to look at when we want to talk about the history of the letters in the Filipino alphabet. But for today, for this lecture, we're just looking at the Baybayin and the Kudlit and the use of Roman alphabet and Spanish orthography, and moving some of these things in another lesson. Okay. Now let's look at the Baybayin. So what is the Baybayin? So the Baybayin is actually the traditional system of writing. And what it is it's very similar to the systems of writing of other countries in Southeast Asia. And it was used by many ethno-linguistic groups in the Philippines. Actually, not just the Tagalogs. So, for example, here is a photo of a Hanunuwa boy of Mindoro. It comes from the Hanunuwa ethno-linguistic group. And see, he's writing on some bamboo, right? So, there are many possible sources of the Baybayin. So it depends on which scholar you're reading. According to Scott, and here I'm referring to William Henry Scott, it is among the indigenous Southeast Asian alphabets that are derived from India. So thus, these alphabets actually share a Sanskrit characteristic. And what is this Sanskrit characteristic? It's the unmarked symbol, which is pronounced with a vowel, while the addition of diacritical marks change the vowel. So, let me put it in simpler terms. So, there is the symbol. If you see the symbol, you pronounce it with a. So, for example, ba. And then you put a diacritical mark. So, it becomes b or be. Or then you put the diacritical mark somewhere and it becomes bo or bu. Let's look at some examples. Okay? But first, let's look at other possible sources of the Baybayin. So according to Paul Morrow, who in turn he cites other scholars, he says the Baybayin may have descended from the Bugis script, or more likely a related lost script from the island of Sulawesi. And he says it probably arrived in Luzon in the 13th or 14th century. Actually, some scholars now don't believe that, some scholars believe that it arrived earlier, but that's what he said. Okay, let's move on. And these are just photographs of some writing instruments. So as you can see the bamboo and you can see the knife that they kind of use to write the Baybayin. Okay, let's look at some letters. So you have the letter A, E, and I. Now, pause for a moment. Okay, what does it mean, E and I? So sometimes, and some of you here are like, so you're intermediate Filipino, so you know a lot of Filipino words. So, have you noticed that people sometimes say lalaki or lalake, meaning man, or babai, meaning woman? What is the correct way of pronouncing it? Who cares? Right? You can say lalaki, lalaki, same. You can say babae, babae, it's okay. Right? So it doesn't really matter. Why? Because the E and I actually only had one symbol and you can pronounce it either way. And this continues today. Okay? So, same thing for O and U. Okay? Sometimes people interchange these two vowels as well. Now, let's just look at the concept of the kudlit. Okay? So look at this inverted hearts. The first heart is pronounced ba. Why? Because it has no diacritical marks. If you look at the second heart, you see that kind of like diacritical mark, you know, the one that looks like a comma up there. So if you see that, then you pronounce that B or be. Then the third one, you see that the critical mark, again, looking like a comma, um, and it's pronounced bo or boo. So this is what Scott was saying earlier when he said that um, if you see a diacritical mark, then you change the way that the letter is pronounced. Let's move on. Okay, now you have the consonant ka. This is the consonant ga, ha, la, and now you have the full Baybayin script. Those are just examples. Okay, I need you to pause for a moment and I need you to think of your names, okay? And I need you to practice writing your names in Baybayin. So, use the following steps. Number one, I need you to syllabicate your names. Meaning what? So, if your name is Maria, you need to think of it as Ma, Ri, A. Something like that. And then, so, let's say your name is Maria, you write down the letter Ma, right? And then you write down the letter Da or Ra. So again, notice Da and Ra. There's only one symbol. It's a little bit like Din and Rin, which means also. Some people say Din, some people say Rin. Dara, same. So put Ra and then put a diacritical mark above it. Okay? And then put A. Now, what happens if your name has a one the first let's say your name is Dani, okay? So it's Dan E, no Dani. Now that's a good example. Oh, okay, let's say your name is Batman. Okay, so look at the word bat and then man. The T in bat is actually not written. You just say ba, ma. So T and N in man, they're not considered. But how do we know that what you're reading is Batman if you're just writing Batma? People just know. That's just the rule. Okay, now, what do we also notice? We also notice when people wrote the Baybayin, there was a variety of letter shapes. And this is from Scott's 1984 study of Santa Maria's book. And I don't think this is 1938. This is maybe 1838. Okay, so, but what we're trying to say here is this. We're trying to say that even if there are these letter shapes that we know of today, if we look at different sources of Baybayin, you would have sometimes variations. Which brings me to, for example, a contemporary example. So, for example, with a Kalatagan pot that was excavated. So they were studying the Baybayin symbols on the pot, right? And they realized that they can't make out some of the symbols. So they had to look at several versions of the Baybayin from other sources to be able to understand the symbols more.